Fear has remained to be a somewhat annoying constant in my life. Even with my parents' constant talk of God giving me strength and attending Christian schools for my entire life, I still feel like a coward most of the time. Going into high school was especially terrifying. To put it in context, I went to a school where the 8th grade graduating class had a whopping number of 19 kids in it. This entails to us, of course, being a tight-knit group. We're all each other's best friends, simply because when you spend 9 years with somebody else, you're kind of forced to love them. When the prospect of high school came up, the circumstances of me and my really close friends were vastly different. Many of them had siblings in St. Francis, but I did not. I had two brothers in Bell, and I was pretty determined to follow them. I understood where they were coming from, but I can't say I wasn't hurt. I felt abandoned and alone. How could God take away my friends? How could He make me the one who's alone? Fortunately, He gave me a saving grace. I didn't go alone. One of my closest friends chose to go to Bell instead of St. Francis. I was really lucky to have him. And together, we walked into this big new world, took the bull by its horns, and went into Bell. He was my last connection to my old friends, and when I was with him, I didn't feel so scared. Our first semester breezed by quickly. We had lunch together on day one, and when we eventually started to branch out into other groups, our little lunch group grew quite a bit. With him, I felt like I had this good sense of belonging. Bellarmine wasn't as scary as I thought it was. Maybe I was giving God a little too much flack on this. In the second semester of our freshman year, he started to strangely miss out on one of our shared classes. This was uncharacteristic of him. He was a very smart kid and he'd never do this. Here, the Bellman community would recognize that he had brain cancer. I think it was at this point where I really started my faith journey. I constantly asked these deep, intruding questions in my head, but no one was there to answer them. I always thought, how can an omnipotent being cripple someone who had so much to look for in life? Didn't really make sense. It felt like we were forgotten, like God had more important things to do. Our entire worlds were altered, and we were forced to live in these new, harsh ones. Everything was twice as difficult, twice as emotionally taxing, and it felt like that for a long while, even though we fought like hell through this treatment. It was a long year and a half, and it was full of adventures and laughs. And he loved to smile, and whenever he would, I felt like we could take this on. But we tried our best. Ultimately, we were defeated. When he passed away, life felt incomplete. The day after his passing was a cold and broken morning. After Mass, I remember sitting on on the top floor of Sobrato, outside my English class, too broken to just be inside. I was yelling and cursing, angry at myself and the nothingness that surrounded me. Absolutely nothing added up. Even though we bared our teeth and tackled this challenge head on, nothing came out of it. I felt like we were discarded, like my feelings were disregarded by my old friends, and the fear of being alone again in this enormous world engulfed me. I was absolutely destroyed, because I'd never see my best friend again. I remember sitting outside the door, sobbing, when a few classmates just got up and walked outside to be with me. And in the bitter, cold morning, even with a flood of emotions conflicting in my mind, I can safely look back at that memory and thank God that He didn't leave me alone. Just by simply being with them, I felt better. This band of men were there to ease the pain I was feeling. They were reminding me that I wasn't alone. I could cry and shout and be frustrated at the entire world, and they'd be there to make sure I felt better. For most of the period, we sat there, barely speaking, heads in our hands. But being in the group reminded me, I wasn't alone. I've always found myself disliking the "God does everything for a reason" quote, because in the back of my mind, I think things happen just because of chance. But because of that day, I mainly see God as a motivation. He stood for righteousness and solidarity, and that's exactly what was given to me on that fateful day. If those classmates of mine didn't stand up to simply be in my presence, I never know what true camaraderie is. For God to have simply inspired and encouraged brotherhood was all I needed. If the fruits of God's teaching wasn't there with me on that day, I don't think I could have moved on with the future, with the mindset that I have today. Moving on hasn't been easy. Not a day goes by that I don't think about him. But when I walk through the quad, or sit in class, or even talk with a teacher, I'm reminded that I'm not alone. In this community, built from the foundation of God's teaching, I feel safe, and I feel like I can walk forth and take the future.